think we can get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Becca Shumlin. I'm a director here at Putney, and I am joined today by my dad, Peter, and my uncle, Jeff, who are the co-directors of the organization. Today, we're going to tell you a little bit about Putney and who we are as an organization. We're going to tell you about our history and the programs that we run. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. If you get disconnected from the webinar, you can log back in through Zoom using the same information that you used in the original email about joining us today. If you're having problems connecting, it may be a bandwidth issue, and closing all the other tabs on your computer or logging other devices off of your Wi-Fi can help. Please ask any questions throughout the webinar today using the Q&A feature in the bottom of the screen, and we will respond to you directly, and we may take a couple questions and hold them until the end of the presentation and answer them live. If you have more questions after this webinar, please feel free to give us a call at our office. Our number is 802-387-5000. And speaker view should be the default view for this webinar, but if it's not the view that you have right now, then we recommend switching to speaker view in the upper right-hand corner. And thank you for joining us. And I think we can turn it over to Jeff to get started.
Great. Thank you, Becca, and thank you everyone for joining us. I am Jeff Shumlin. And before us on the screen, you have our founders and our parents, Peter's and mine, and Becca's grandparents, George and Kitty Shumlin. We're going to endeavor to give you a little history. We won't get into tremendous detail on all the programs because there are so many, but would invite you to call if you have very specific questions or want to hear more about a given program. The idea here is to give you an introduction of who we are and where we come from. Our parents, I'm not going to give you the long story, but Kitty is Dutch. She's now 90 years old. George died 6 years ago at just before 90 years old, was an educator. They met when he was traveling during the summer, during his education, late education on the GI Bill after World War II. And they, of course, fell in love on a ship crossing, as one did in those days. And believe it or not, married about a year and 2 weeks into their long distance relationship, having spent a total of 12 days together. The honeymoon of that program was the initial Putney student travel program, one we still offer today to Western Europe. And they headed off by boat in those days with a 14-day crossing with 16 students in tow. And we all grew out of that first experience. The idea, of course, in those days was to respond to a sort of a post-conflict world, to try to build common understanding and reconciliation, mostly focused on Europe at the time. After a time that had been very difficult. And they really had the unusual idea of turning summer vacation into summer education. And as I say, keeping students safe while all the time finding common ground with people off the beaten track. We used a lot of our Becca's great-grandfather's contacts in the Netherlands to get off the beaten track into little villages where they had interaction with wonderful people. Many of these programs we've run now, this is our 71st year, but for many, many decades. We're looking here at a shot from Tanzania in 1971, where we had a group of students climb Kilimanjaro and go on safari together. And believe it or not, we're still doing those things and working with the children and grandchildren of the safari providers who we worked with back in 1971. So there's a rich, multi-generational tradition here at Putney Student Travel and internationally. We're particularly focused on the multi-generational nature of the organization today, because you see the family here before you just a month or so ago. Peter and I in the back, Becca on the left, Olivia on the right, and our mother and founder, Kitty Shumlin, in the middle. The reason I say this is you can see that little pouch that Olivia was carrying around in this picture we're really pleased to say that she delivered baby Max on Tuesday, happy and healthy. They're headed home from the hospital as we speak. And no doubt the fourth generation of Shumlins will soon be involved in the administration of Putney student travel. I also want to mention
he already has an office, Jeff.
He has an office, right? We look forward to seeing him soon. I also want to mention, because I know Peter won't, that he has a distinction that most of us don't, which is that he served as the governor of Vermont for 3 consecutive terms and has been back with us for 4 or 5 years. So has contacts in the state and around the world from that extraordinary experience as well. It's unusual, frankly. I think it's unprecedented for 3 Shumlins to be the host of a presentation like this. And it's kind of fun to do it, particularly in this week when Liv has brought Max into the world. But I want to point out that we are a much bigger organization than just the Shumlins. We have about 35 extraordinary people working in this old barn with us back on a dirt road in Vermont. And they are quite amazing. Worlds of travel, Peace Corps volunteers, licensed ships captains, all sorts of professional and outdoor adventures under their belts. And we feel very, very privileged to work with them all on a daily basis. And I hope you'll get to know them as well. I talked a little bit about sort of the continuity of our programs, and this is an example that I love. I took this picture on a French language program that I was a co-leader of. My co-leader is on the left in this photo in 1979. And a few years ago, we found this picture that one of our colleagues, Karen, had taken when she led the same program, hiking in the French Alps, had happened to have a picnic on the exact same rock. Her co-leader up on the left in the very same position. The only thing that's really changed in the 35 years or so in between those photos is, of course, the receding glaciers across the valley in the Mont Blanc range. But there's tremendous continuity here of contacts, of history. We have an amazing network of people we work with around the world to provide extraordinary programming experiences, doctors, you name it, transportation networks. The fact that this would be our 71st summer, I think, can easily be found in the quality and care in which we bring programs to the world. What we're going to do is scan, well, actually, maybe I'll turn it over to Becca. Now that I see this, maybe I'll turn it over to Becca a bit just to talk about sort of the COVID dynamics and what we've done in the past couple of summers.
Sure. So I'll just briefly touch on the past 2 years and what that has looked like here at Putney. So Putney successfully operated programs even during COVID times because we feel that in-person experience and learning is so important. At the urging of alumni parents, we offered a program in summer 2020 when most people had shut down. So we moved all of our programming to Castleton University, which is what you see in the photos there. Castleton is in Vermont, where at the time there were extremely low COVID rates. So we had to invent really strict protocols with masking, pods, a whole lot of testing, and really all the things that are so commonplace now. And we were able to run a really successful, really fun pre-college program for 350 high school and middle school students, completely COVID-free. And then last summer in 2021, we returned to sending programs all over the world in places that were safe with extraordinary success. And this summer, now that vaccines are available, we will require all students and staff to be vaccinated, and we will continue to follow CDC guidelines and the requirements of the destinations that we travel to, continuing to ensure the safety of our students and our leaders, but also the communities that we engage with.
Thanks, Becca.
Sorry. There's one more here.
Oh,
so we just wanted to quickly share these quotes with you. These are just a couple of quotes from parents whose students traveled with us during the COVID times. And we wanted to share these with you because it just confirmed all of our instincts that people have been so isolated and confined, and they really need in-person experiences more than ever. And the quote at the top in particular, I think really sums it up and just really speaks to why we worked so hard to make this happen. So we just wanted to share those with you. And now I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
Thank you, Becca. We can't tell you about all of the programs we offer, as it says here, on 6 continents and 31 countries today. It would be a long, long presentation. So what we're going to try to do is break down by category the different kinds of programs we offer. And on each slide, you'll see the destinations in question and just give you a sense of the kind of things that we're doing in summer 2022. And the first category is service. And those programs are all very similar in design, in the sense that they are designed for small groups of students, probably 16 to 18 students traveling with 2 leaders, very qualified leaders who know the areas we visit, speak the languages, and are just terrific role models. And we live quite simply in towns of probably 500, 600, 700 people. Often we will have a house for the boys and a house for the girls, where we have all the amenities of home, you know, plumbing and all that good stuff, but they're pretty tight. We might bring in air mattresses, for example, and you might have 3 or 4 students, or 5 even, in a room that at first blush might look like it was designed for 1 or 2. We break up into 3 or 4 project groups during the day, so they're much smaller, to work on a significant construction project where we might be, for example, in Tanzania, building a classroom on a school, or in Peru, a community center for a group of women who are going to put a daycare center in there. We have a light construction project where we might be painting a school or something along those lines, and then always a project working with children, running summer camps, day camps, things along those lines. And students rotate through those projects in the 2 to 4 weeks that we're in these programs, and get a chance to work on a little bit of all of them. Each student also does an independent project in the community focused on some point of interest. We will have usually a woman in each town, or 2 who we call the mamas, who help us with cooking and cleaning, and we give them a cooking crew each day. So as a student, you rotate through a cooking crew every 4 or 5 days to help prepare the group's meals. And then on the weekends, we travel. And often they'll have some sort of a culminating travel piece at the end. Again, in Tanzania, a 4-day or a 5-day safari out in some of the national parks of Tanzania with just unbelievable wildlife, something along those lines. And everyone gets a service certificate at the end of the program for the number of hours that they have worked. You'll see that we have 2 different age groups for many of these programs. High school is students completing 9th through 12th grades. Middle school, in the case of service, is either 6th through 8th or 7th and 8th, 6th through 8th in Costa Rica and 7th and 8th in Ecuador and the Galapagos. The next category is a little bit of a catch-all, and it's exploration. And we have 2 age groups once again, and again, groups of 16 to 18, maybe 20 students around the world. Some of them super focused on very challenging outdoor activities like climbing to the summit of Kilimanjaro, as I mentioned, or those who really love skiing, going on some of the best summer snow that we can find in Patagonia. But many of them are traveling programs like the one our parents and grandparents first led in 1951 to Switzerland, Italy, and France and Holland, which alternate very rural experiences, hiking in the Dolomites, biking along the coast of the North Sea in Holland, with a lot of interaction with local people, with then a much more intense focus on high culture in Florence, Italy, or Paris, or Amsterdam. And we're not constantly on the move. These aren't team tours. We'll be traveling by train as much as possible. We tend to stay 4 or 5 days so that we can get to know some of the contacts Putney has before moving on. They're still quite immersive in all that they do, and really wonderful active programs. Next category I'll touch is very similar in structure, in that they are also programs for 16 to 18 students. They are also on the move in that same way, but not moving constantly. The big difference here is that students sign a pledge to communicate in French or Spanish all the time, even with their peers. So on a French language program, we stumble along in French the whole time, and we get a range of ability coming at us at the beginning. There will be some students who speak very well. There will be many who've had a number of years of French, but frankly have a hard time putting a sentence together at the beginning. We find that what really matters is their willingness to give it a try. And then we put them in situations where they have a huge amount of interaction with people. In France, for example, there's a little village on the coast of Brittany, a fishing town where students can help fishermen in the field or work on an artichoke farm, picking artichokes with a farmer, really sort of coordinated effort to make sure that that interaction happens in a safe and wonderful way. We do the same thing for middle school students. Some of these programs have a homestay component. That is the one thing that we're still a little conservative on in the time of COVID. At this point, they're scheduled to be day stays where we all stay in the homestay town and we get together with our homestay families for activities or meals during the day and come back together with our group at night, only because we're not quite sure how quickly the vaccination of young people is going to get to some of the places we visit. But that will be evolving as the year goes on. The next category of programs, before I turn it over to Peter, is what we call career programs. And they also are all over the world. And we have put sort of the theme that they focus on next to the destination on the slide here. And the idea here is to get in-depth involved in something that is a passion of yours that you don't get the time to focus on in school, or something that you think might be an interesting career that you'd like to explore a little more. The Belize program, as an example, is a program that has a veterinary medicine focus and zoology. And we interact with people at the Zoo of Belize. We work with vets. We get a lot of students come to that program who are thinking about a career in veterinary medicine. Italy, Farm to Table, is all about interacting in Tuscany with a wonderful farm, sustainable farm, where we are working in the fields, but also meeting with people who specialize in making pasta or gelato or whatever it is, and it culminates in the creation of a massive feast that we invite all of our contacts in town to at the end. The Peru Public Health Program looks at various models of public health in rural areas of Peru. And these also involve a personal, individual research project that is presented to your peers and the people we meet along the way at the end of the program. So these are much more in-depth focuses, again, for students completing 9th through 12th grades in all of these countries that you can see here across the globe. Pete, do you want to tell us a bit about the Oxford Academia programs?
Well, you and Becca are doing such a good job. I'm thinking I should just sit back and enjoy the ride, but I'll take a shot at it. I'll tell you a little about, I'm going to speak to two, as Jeff mentioned. One is Oxford Academia programs, and then what we call Putney Pre-College. And let me just start with Oxford Academia. One thing that Becca and Jeff haven't mentioned is that everything that we do at Putney, we really have one goal, and that is to change kids' lives in the summertime, give them opportunities to grow, to learn, and to really be challenged. And that's why we keep doing it year after year after year. This program, Oxford Academia, is no different in that it's rooted in personal relationships with people and partners that have the same goal. And this program is really a collaboration between us and Professor James Basker, who founded many years ago, 45 years ago, a program called Oxbridge. Jim he's a professor at Columbia and Barnard. He's head of the Lehrman American History Institute there. But he's a Rhodes Scholar from Oxford and taught there, contributes his journey in education to his experience at Oxford. And I personally think that there's nothing he likes more than getting high school students in a really challenging educational environment in Oxford and turning them on to all of the educational opportunities and growth that comes from that experience. So Oxford Academia is really is directed by Jim Basker. He had a program there, as I mentioned, for close to 45 years. It was called Oxbridge. You might have heard of it. He's no longer associated with Oxbridge. And he came to us and said, I really want to make the magic happen for kids in Oxford again. Will you help administer the program? I'm way too busy doing all the things that I'm supposed to do at Barnard and Columbia. So we said, certainly. Why has Jim's program always been so good? There's one reason. It's Jim Basker. The reason is that he is able to get a level of professors, of guest lecturers, of exposure to the Oxford experience that others of us simply couldn't get. Why? Because he is a fellow at Oxford, he's a Rhodes Scholar himself, and therefore he's able to engage Rhodes Scholars, Marshall Scholars, Gates, Oxford Scholars, who he turns to them and says, hey, we've taught together, will you teach high school students in the summertime? Now, generally Oxford professors would say, no, we don't do that. Jim is able to, because he's a friend and a colleague, to get them engaged, and once they do it, they love it. So what is it? We take over the colleges at Oxford, historic, absolutely, historic gems. And every student chooses a major and a minor. The majors meet 6 days a week, including Saturday morning. The minors meet 3 afternoons a week. And really, you choose the subject you want to choose, major and minor, but you will get a level of instruction and a level of excitement about those subjects that I would say you cannot get, and certainly in an American high school, probably at many universities throughout the United States. So it's for high achieving students who want to really engage in very small seminars, 14 to 16 students. And obviously we're in the classroom because we have to be from time to time, and actually quite frequently, but we also use the huge resources of Oxford, of London, of the entire region to help relate it to the course subject. So go hit seminars, hit guest lectures, hit all the on the website on Oxford Academia. And I think both parents and students will go, wow, this is amazing. It really truly is. Afternoons and evenings, students, there's group meeting every night. This is also true in our pre-college programs. Students help organize activities for the afternoon and evenings. Weekends, we explore England and engage someone. A group of students might get up and say, hey, we're going to the Shakespeare Festival Saturday. Who wants to go? Others might get up and say, hey, we've organized a trip to an amazing sports event that's happening in some region of England. Or we're organizing a trip to London to go to the Tate Gallery, whatever it might be. So lots of collaboration, lots of student involvement in the non-academic portion of the programs. Truly an astounding program. It's two-week sessions, or many students do 4 weeks. They do double sessions. There's a financial discount for doing that. And they're able to choose 2 majors and 2 minors. Now this year, we're also launching Oxford Academia in Paris at the American University of Paris, which is very exciting. It's an incredible location, beautiful dormitories, facilities. Obviously, we're offering French language there, which we're not offering at Oxford, but lots of other courses really using Paris and France as a classroom. And I just returned from the University of Siena, where we met with the chancellor there. They're very excited about a partnership with Oxford Academia to offer amazing programs in Siena, one of the most beautiful cities in Tuscany, historic gem, and we're only 45 minutes by commuter train to Florence. So we'll be offering the programs there as well. Exactly the same as Oxford Academia. Those 2 will be up on the website in about 2 weeks. Now, as you just mentioned before I moved to pre-college, you can mix and match. In other words, one could choose to do 2 weeks at Oxford and 2 weeks in Paris, or 2 weeks in Tuscany for a 4-month experience. And we'll help coordinate transportation. There'll be a lot of students, I'm sure, that will be doing that. So that's for really high achieving high school students who want to have an extraordinary educational experience. Pre-college, Putney has been running for many, many years. And the beauty of these programs is very similar structure. Every student chooses a major and a minor. They don't meet Saturdays, but you meet 5 days a week. The seminars are very much hands-on experiences. So let's say that you're studying farm to table in our Vermont campus. You'll be out working with farmers, making cheese with national award-winning cheesemakers. If you're studying forensics, you'll be in the police lab. If you're in Barcelona and you're studying sports and sports history, you'll be out working with the teams, getting to know people in the field. So more, I would say, on more field work outside of the classroom, very dynamic programs, and we offer them in Barcelona, Tokyo, Vermont, and UCLA. So really, that's our pre-college experience. What's it all about? I would say it's all about having students get a taste of college life, learn in an environment where they're learning about things because they want to and not because they have to, and a level of instruction and engagement that really develops their intellectual curiosity. Students often say, well, if I know what I want to major in, but I don't know what I want to minor in. And we always say to students, choose a minor in an area at your school that maybe they don't offer or that you've never explored before. So you can get excited about something new and entirely different. So anyway, I've gone on too long probably, but they're extraordinary programs, both Putney Pre-College and Oxford Academia, and you will see very soon University of Paris and American University of Paris and University of Siena.
Thanks, Peter. That's great. The one thing that you didn't say, but I think you implied, is that these are obviously a much larger format experience, where instead of groups of 16 to 18, we're dealing with much bigger campuses, much bigger groups of students, and much bigger staff. I want to touch on a few themes that run throughout all of our programs, things that we really think set us apart from others and that are really reflected in our 71-year history. The group leaders that we hire are not college students. They're extraordinary professionals. In this case, Julia, who you see here, is a recent Peace Corps volunteer in Rwanda, spent 4 years there, has led our Tanzania programs many times, speaks Swahili and Kinyarwanda, knows how to keep students healthy, knows how best to interact, but mostly is just an extraordinary person who's accomplished a lot and who students really want to be with. They're young and energetic and great role models. Our professors and instructors, as Peter has already indicated, are often Rhodes Scholars, accomplished professionals in universities across the country, at many esteemed institutions, and provide a great opportunity for our young students to get involved in academic subjects at a very high level without the pressure of being in college or high school. Programming is very innovative. I always love this slide because this Maasai guide is one of our warrior guides on a foot safari that we do through Maasai hunting lands that you see in the background there. And he literally walks with a spear in hand as we go through the countryside, through the acacia trees, with wildlife all around us. And you get a chance to talk to him about his life, about how he and his siblings split up the school day, so each of them studied for half a day in order to be able to spend the other half herding their goats and cows and keeping the family's business essentially on track. And all of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, his cell phone will ring and he'll reach under his Maasai robe and his wife will be calling, and the modern world comes in and they have even better cell reception than we do here in Vermont. And you realize that these communities that we visit are giving us extraordinary interaction and experience with generations long culture, but also where they stand today, which is really terrific. Lots of hands-on activities, cooking classes in Florence. I mentioned working on farms in France and other places. I think if you ask any Putney alum what they remember most about their Putney experience, they will say first and foremost, how incredibly close I became with my peers in the group and my group leaders. We will stay in touch forever. We became like one family. And they are very structured programs. This is not for the student who wants to wander around Europe on their own with a backpack. We're going to be doing something in an organized way with group leaders all the time. They're going to be fun, engaging people. The activities will be tremendous, but it's structured. And of course, we wouldn't be doing it if it weren't a lot of fun. That has been the case for 71 years. Becca, do you want to jump in again and talk about a few sort of general questions that sometimes come up?
Sure. So I'll just talk briefly about, a couple important things to know. So a commitment to health and safety is absolutely central to all of our program operations, everything we do here, and has really been the key to our success as international educators. For over 7 decades, Putney has brought student travelers all over the world and return them home safe, happy, and in one piece. And we plan to continue that for the next 7 decades. And just to give you a few quick examples of our approach, all of our group leaders are CPR and first aid certified, and many hold higher certifications. International SOS is available to provide consultation and emergency medical services for all students on programs outside the US. So in the unlikely event that a student needs to be evacuated for a medical or safety reason, they will be supported by our professional travel, medical, and security service. We maintain personal relationships with trusted local hospitals, clinics, providers, and have a really strong network of in-country contacts who are always ready to support. And then people often ask about communication. One thing that we really pride ourselves on here at Putney is our commitment to maintaining open lines of communication with parents, students, and leaders. We keep in really close contact with our group leaders when they're in the field, and we communicate any essential information to families. And during the summer months, we here at the Putney Barn have a 24-hour emergency line for families and leaders to reach us for any essential communication at any time during the program. It literally rings by all of our bedsides, all hours of the day or night. You can reach us. Each trip also has a program blog, which is updated throughout the program by the students and the leaders. And that's a really great way for families back home to keep in touch with what is going on the ground. And then a little bit more specifically on technology. So students can bring a cell phone on most Putney programs. However, the first 5 days of small group trips, there is a tech fast. So once the students arrive in country, they reach out to their families to tell them they arrived safely. And then the whole group sets their phone to airplane mode for 5 days, although they can still use their phone to take pictures. And then on the 6th day of the program, the group will meet to determine guidelines for how they want to use technology for the remainder of the trip. And we find that being intentional about technology enables our students to fully engage in the experience, to build a stronger sense of community in their group, and strengthen their skills in creating interpersonal relationships. And actually, more often than not, we hear from students that they wish the Tech Fast had actually lasted longer because it just had such a significant positive impact on that group experience. And then international travel. So once a student has been accepted on a Putney program, we provide detailed information about program-specific travel and flight logistics. For most programs outside of the US, families will be directed to book their students' own seats on a round-trip group flight designated by Putney so they can fly over with a leader and other students. And we call these group flights booked by the family, formerly known as escorted flights. And then for a few select destinations, families will be directed to purchase their student seats on a group flight through Putney, and we call these group flights booked by Putney. And Putney will provide assistance with flexible travel options if needed. Families may opt out of the group flight when it's available, and we really do our best to accommodate any travel situations and are always happy to work through travel plans with you. The application process. So the application is completed entirely online. You go to our website, click apply, create a login, and then this login becomes what we call the digital locker. And this digital portal is your one-stop shop from beginning your application all the way through where you will find, once you are accepted, where you'll find the necessary information and documents needed to get ready for your program. When you start your application, you enter basic info like your name, your grade, what school you go to, and your contact information so we know how to get in touch with you. And then the next and arguably most important step is you select your program choice and then secure a space on that program with a signed agreement form and a $700 payment, which is a $200 application fee and a $500 tuition deposit. And once that space is secured, we won't give it away. And the remainder of the application will open up for you in that digital locker, and you can complete the rest of the application when you have time. And the rest of the application consists of a personal statement, which is, I think, 150 to 300 words, telling us a bit about who you are and why you want to go on this program. And then we ask for 2 teacher references. And you don't actually have to obtain those by yourself. You just fill in a form giving us your teacher's information, and we will contact them and get those references for you. We do have a rolling admissions process, so we will accept applicants until a program is full. And I should note that there's quite a bit of pent-up demand this year, which has resulted in a lot of applications to date. So the programs are already filling really quickly. So if you think you want to travel with us, I would highly encourage you to get started and at least hold space on a program as soon as possible. And then briefly about scholarships. So scholarships are available through the Putney Open Door Fund, which is a nonprofit foundation whose purpose is to eliminate barriers for young people who are hoping to go on educational, experiential travel programs like these. You can learn more about scholarships, about eligibility and how to apply and the application on our website. The scholarship application is separate from the application that I just described, and the deadline to apply is February 15. I think that's it, and I'll turn it over to Pete to talk about collaborations.
Thank you, Becca. We're making progress, by the way. We're not going to keep you here for another 7 minutes or so, and then we're happy to answer questions. I just want to talk to you very briefly about our collaborations. As I mentioned, we have a partnership with Professor Basker. We also have 3 collaborations, just want to mention to you, that you'll find on our website if you go digging. One is with the Harvard School of Public Health, the other is with Columbia University Climate School, and the third is with the Smithsonian. First on Harvard. Short story, there's always a connection of why Putney builds a collaboration. This one is really attributed to Gina McCarthy. Gina McCarthy was the head of the EPA during the Obama administration. She then was engaged by Harvard to head up all of their climate change related work, both internally and externally. She and I ended up at the School of Public Health together just by coincidence. We worked together when she was at the EPA, good friends. And we were having a glass of wine tonight. This is before COVID, a couple of years ago. And she said, this was, of course, when high school students and middle school students were striking on Fridays, leaving school because they were so concerned about the lack of action on climate change. It's when Greta was coming across to speak to the UN about her vision around climate change. Anyway, Gina said in her very characteristic Boston accent, Peter, isn't it ridiculous that Harvard's, all our resources are going to undergraduates and graduates around climate when it's the young students that are taking all the action? Let's take all of the resources we have here and just throw it at high school students in the summertime. Get our professors, our scientists, our speakers, our entrepreneurs, our inventors, and just give them the tools that they need. They know walking out of school on Friday isn't going to solve the problem, but they don't have the tools they need to take action. So she said, don't you all deal with high school kids? I said, yeah, we do. And she said, well, you do that and we're going to do the content. So anyway, long and short of it is the Harvard School of Public Health with us offers 2 one-week seminars where we bring together extraordinary leaders around climate. Harvard, they come from medical school, from School of Public Health, from all of Harvard's resources, as well as beyond. Each student chooses a focus. So you work in a smaller group, even though you collectively listen to lecturers and get engaged with all the other people that are on campus during this extraordinary time. And you'll choose a specific focus that allows you within your group to take an action plan back. It can be around climate science, entrepreneurship, justice, health, and the impacts on health, medicine, climate policy. So you'll choose a focus and go back and put that in action. So I urge you to take a look at that for anyone that's interested in the science, the policy of climate, public health, and for pre-med students, the impact of climate on the future of medicine. Second one is Smithsonian. And Smithsonian is really an amazing partnership. I mean, Smithsonian, as you all know, has the most incredible treasure trove of expertise, history, art, probably in the world, arguably. We have a partnership with them where we run their high school programs. And really the focus is often to begin with the sort of a unusual access to the experts at the Smithsonian in whatever your travel program that usually goes 12 to 24 days. And start in Washington with this amazing resources of Smithsonian, and then connect it to a theme that the Smithsonian is dedicated to help build a better planet. So those programs might focus on technology, conservation, history, climate, race and social justice, aerospace, So, aerospace, you start at the Museum of Aerospace, Smithsonian, and obviously you travel to Houston and NASA, so they're all related to the Smithsonian theme. So I urge you to click on Smithsonian Student Travel. You can find it on our website, or just Google Smithsonian Student Travel. That will pop up. Finally, Columbia Climate School. So Columbia came to us, and the president of Columbia is bound and determined to make Columbia University one of the first green Ivies. They've started the first new school there in, I believe, 50 years. They're investing significant resources to do it. It's called the Columbia Climate School. And they came to us and said, we really want to work with you to create a curriculum for students during the summertime where we use our Columbia scientists, our faculty, our professors, but we want it to be in Vermont, where Vermont's done a huge amount of work around renewable energy as sort of the laboratory, so that when we go out and do our field work, we have a great laboratory to do it. So we launched that last summer right here in Vermont. It's called the Columbia Climate School in Green Mountains. It's on Columbia's website. You can link it on ours. It's a 2-week program. We accept about 100 students. Much like Harvard, you break into very small pods, but you're doing a lot of field work. It's 2 weeks instead of 1, and you're having the access to Columbia professors and resources. And it's really also an extraordinary program for students that really want to dig into the science, the activism, and the necessity of this challenge that lies ahead. So those are 3 partnerships or collaborations, I should say, that we're excited about, and ask you to click on those as well. One thing I should mention about those, like, for example, Harvard, that 1-week program we do at the end of the summer. So a lot of students might go off and go to Oxford, or go on one of our travel programs, go do service in Costa Rica or Vietnam, come back, do a week at Harvard, and then go home. So you can mix and match these programs. When you mix and match any program, you get a $1,000 discount for the second program. So that's just a little bit about the collaborations, and I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Peter. Mike, do you want to join us maybe and let us know if we have any questions that we need to answer? Mike's waiting in the wings.
I am. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, there are some good questions coming in. One that I wanted to turn over to you all is, there was a question about siblings, specifically twins or friends traveling together. And another question from, I think, an alumni family wondering if the same application and process applies to them if they've traveled with us previously.
So I'm happy to take the siblings and friends very quickly, because I'll be brief. We love siblings. If siblings want to travel together, we love siblings to travel together. It always works. If you want, we're happy to take siblings in separate programs too, if you want to try traveling or doing a program without your brother or sister there. Well, we welcome it if that's your choice. In terms of friends, we don't take huge groups of friends, but we have no objection to small groups of friends, 2, maybe 3, that agree in advance that they are going to expend their extraordinary qualities to all the other members of the group and make a really determined effort to do that in the first few days. Jeff and Becca mentioned the tight group experience and the growth that comes from that. We really feel strongly that that is the main catalyst for change in any of our programs. I know that sounds kind of corny, but it's true. It's particularly necessary right now when students, in light of all that students have been through in the last couple of years of isolation, too much technology because there's no other outlet, not being in school in person, the lost opportunities. We hear from both parents and students, just get us back together again. Obviously, if you're coming back together again in a pre-formed group and you're all alone, that's not going to be much fun. So we don't take huge groups of friends. We will take small groups of friends in situations where we know that they can mix with the rest of the group and are eager to do so in a non-clicky way.
And I'll pick up the alumni process for alumni. Thank you for that question as well. It's an easy one. Once students have been accepted to a program and participated in a program, we feel we know them as well, if not better than their teachers, and we do not put them through the admissions process again. So it's simply a question of going to the website, hitting apply now, or logging into your existing digital locker if you remember the password. And then you'll be asked to click on the student who already exists and pick a new program, put in the $700 deposit that Becca referred to, and we take it from there. It's a very quick and easy process. We do not have to do essays or references again.
Perfect. And maybe there's a couple others that have answered directly with families. There is one about references, and maybe I'll just quickly answer that one if it's okay, which is that if you are interested in speaking with past participants and families that have traveled with us, you're welcome to call our offices. We can put you in touch with specific program directors and share contact information for past families to speak with them directly about their experiences with us.
Mike, I'd love to pick up on that because I think it's something that really sets us apart. But as I said earlier, there are about 30 of us in this barn, and we are divided by the countries and programs that we represent. And it is our preference that if you call and have very specific questions, we put you in touch with the programmer who organizes the program. So you're hearing from the person who may have led the program last year, certainly has led it before, may have been there last month working on this year's program. So call and say, I'm interested in Ecuador and Belize, and we'll flip you around from Julian to Andrew, and you can talk to the person who's working on those programs on a day-to-day basis. We highly recommend that you do that.
One other thing that's a bit of housekeeping too is the recording of this. Will that be available to families on the website, or will we be sending it around to RSVPs? Maybe Becca, you know the answer to that.
Yes, this is being recorded and we will send it around to families early next week. So if you missed parts of it, that's okay.
I just
We'll
want
also
to
post it on our site, right?
Yes.
if we don't botch it too badly, we will. I also just want to add a word about admissions this year. You know, we all know, we don't want to dwell on this because we're all looking forward, but we've been at this for 71 years. The reason that, you know, family matters in all this is that we will treat a student that we accept like they're our own kid. That's why they've always come home, we hope, having grown, changed, and really been nurtured in ways that might not happen on other summer programs. We really care. Having said that, we also know, based on, as Becca pointed out, having operated in both 20 and 21 in COVID times, that students generally are more anxious, more isolated, more concerned than one would normally be. I think we haven't talked enough in this country about the effect that all of this has had on adolescents. What that means in our view is that these programs, face-to-face contact, getting rid of your technology for the first 5 days so that you actually grow relationships with each other that are really become bonding for life. All the magic that happens in these programs is probably more important than ever. I'm only mentioning that because there are two factors in admissions this year that make our programs in particularly high demand. The first is some students deferred last year because they were worried about COVID the year before, and they're now like, finally, everyone's going to be vaccinated, I'm in. So we have a huge number of applicants, more than we've ever had at this time of year. The second part of it is I think parents and students are going, hey, this is our opportunity to make up for lost time. So all I want to say is, Jeff or Becca, I think it was Becca mentioned, it's a rolling admissions process. What that means is when we're full, we're full. The smaller programs obviously fill faster than the larger ones that can accept more students. But if this is something you're excited about, particularly for summer 2022, don't think about it too long. Submit the application, get the process going, because we're going to be going to wait lists sooner than we usually do.
We're grateful to you all for joining us this afternoon. We encourage you once again to call us to talk further if you have specific interest in any given program. And we look forward to chatting with you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.